What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Monday, December 2nd, 2024 edition of the Daily Energy Newsbeat Stand-Up. Here are today's top headlines. First up, Trump threatens BRICS. This one's unbelievable, guys. Definitely our top story. Next up, UN's top court weighs penalties for countries defying climate decrees. Interesting, as the cover art says, it is climate madness. Next up, the secretive oil shipping hub funneling Iranian crude to China. We'll come back to the United States, where LNG demand nears records high as winters loom. And then finally, in our news segment, Texas oil town Odessa among USA cities with the highest wages. Go oil and gas. And then finally, Stu will toss it over to me, and I will quickly cover what happened with the oil and gas markets. We are excited to be back with you. We hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Did you have a good Thanksgiving, Stu?
I did. Lots of turkey, overweight, but now I'm on my diet, lifting weight. Got to get ready for Christmas.
Absolutely. You got 30 days to get in shape. I had a great Thanksgiving. I was at Jerry World on Thanksgiving for a little football with the family. Convinced them to all come down here. It was fun. Game. It was good. It was a good game. They won. I'm not really a Cowboys fan. Go Broncos. We play actually tonight as you guys listen to this. We're the Monday Night Football game. But it was good to see. It's called Jerry World for a reason. Holy smokes. It's huge. So
isn't that great? I am glad that they did. And I believe Dak was not playing is why you won.
Yeah. Well, and they had Drew Lock playing, but for the Giants, but that's neither here nor there. As always, that's Stuart Turley. I'm Michael Tanner. Where do you want to begin?
Let's start with my buddy Trump. Trump threatens BRICS. There is a publisher note on this article on energynewsbeat.co, and the publisher note says, if the Biden-Harris administration had not weaponized the U.S. dollar in such a criminal pattern, BRICS would not have gained the traction that has been able to have been achieved. I wonder who put that in. But anyway, I love President Trump from this. He goes, anybody, quote, looking to replace the U.S. dollar can wave goodbye to America, the president-elect has declared. Trump went on to say that he would ask BRICS nations to promise not to create a common currency nor back any other currency that replace the almighty dollar. I almost disagree with his strong language to a point. I agree with the thought process around it. Cooperation within BRICS is not relegated against anyone or anything. President Putin came out last week, Michael. I don't know if you remember, but he did say he's not looking to displace the dollar. In fact, I think President Trump will lift some sanctions to end the war and stop this sanctioning madness.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Will this work? I don't know. But at least someone's fighting to keep the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. And, we can talk about what the destruction of the dollar up until this point. Trump understands, or at least is getting advice from people that understand, that if the dollar becomes the second most powerful currency in the world, that $34 trillion worth of debt looks a whole lot worse than it does right now. It's the only reason we're still here right now is because, in fact, the dollar is the world's reserve currency. So if all of a sudden we become the second most powerful currency, aka not the reserve currency, everybody's trading in yen, all of a sudden we've got to start accepting Substack donations in yen. Well, that $34 trillion, that becomes awful.
Exactly. And I firmly and very pleased by this. The only way that he could ever get rid of the Fed is if he has other things in place. And Professor Stronghold has made a few great things on X. So I'm still trying to get him on the podcast. Maybe I'll have him next week while you're out.
Yeah, maybe. All right, what's next?
Let's go to UN's top court weighs penalties for countries defying climate degrees. Climate mandates are a sure way to kill the economy of any country. The International Court of Justice, this almost sounds like a cartoon. ICJ, The Hague, will begin consideration Monday of a host of proposed penalties the UN can implement against countries that defy on protecting the environment. I got one thing to say. I think President Trump, if you're listening to this podcast, please throw the UN out of the United States and then back that up and then get the US out of the UN. This is absolutely a horrific continuation of wealth transfer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've shown the charts. We don't need to go back over them. China has increased their emissions twofold while we've actually decreased our emissions somewhere around 15%. So it doesn't really matter what we do. Again, this is a way so that they can implement this climate justice. I mean, we know that phrase everybody's been talking about. It's madness, as you would say, Stu. It's absolutely madness. I want to point out this article. You bolded it. It has no enforcement mechanism, so it's implicated in its rulings, often simply ignore its existence. And that's what we should do. Simply ignore the existence of the UN.
I see nothing.
It's got to be a Sergeant Schultz.
Or, the president, the chancellor of Germany. All right, let's go to the next one here. Secretive oil shipping hub funneling Iranian crude to China. This story fits in with the whole theme of sanctions and everything else because China and Iran have devised a complex system of ship-to-ship transfers in the South China Sea. And Michael, for our podcast listeners, this story on energynewsbeat.co, you look at that area of Bloomberg analysis, that looks like a teenager's face with acne. There's so much ships in that area out there. It is unbelievable how many ships are out there. And it says analysis of nearly 5 years of satellite images shows the vast area of that. This data suggests 350 million barrels of oil have changed hands in the hotspot. But China goes, we see nothing. We see no oil. They say they have not bought any oil.
Yeah, well, that's a lie. But we all knew this was happening, and the problem is, what can we really do to shut it down? We this article points out that Trump's national security advisor pick Mike Waltz has said he's pledged to stop or greatly reduce Iran's ability to collect petroleum revenue, which is going to theoretically have positive benefits both for Ukraine and the Gaza wars, both from a U.S. policies perspective. And where they're going to attack Iran is not necessarily Iran. Where they're going to attack is China, and basically make sure that because if you can stop people from buying it, if they've got nobody to sell it to, they can't sell it. That's really, you don't have to go and stop Iran from selling it. You have to stop somebody from buying it.
Exactly. Now, I need to ask Ananias, because he is great on X, Dr. Ananias. I need to ask him because you can, again, overthink this in many ways. I trust his opinion mostly on a lot of those things, and I think that is an outstanding question. Do we go get China to shut it down, and then what happens to the rest of the oil market? I think OPEC would be happy with that, because they cannot control their members.
Well, they better be. You know what I mean? They better be.
They haven't. They can't. So This is kind of interesting.
It's very interesting. All right, what's next?
Let's go to U.S. LNG demand nears record highs as winter looms. U.S. natural gas LNG plants are running full throttle. Surge comes as cooler weather ends. Michael, this brings up an outstanding point. That is, listen to this. The U.S. continues to dominate the world's largest LNG exporter, with more production expected as new plants go up online. The LNG demand ramps up nearly 40% in the last 2 months due to cold weather forecasts. Michael, I'm writing a couple papers, and one of the papers is we need to get rid of the Jones Act to help out and reduce emissions in Hawaii. We like clean Hawaii, but they can't import U.S. LNG. How about Boston? Boston could really use low-cost LNG, but they won't build pipelines. Why can't they import it U.S. LNG?
Yeah.
So
it
goes hand in hand with the study I've got going on.
It's really interesting. Check that out again on our Substack. Little free plug there, guys. But I do think the LNG, I was actually talking with my brother about it this week while he was in town. We were talking about, in the next 3 to 5 years, where's really are we going to see the growth? Trump keeps talking about increasing American energy. I don't think he's really talking about oil. I think where you're going to see the massive growth is in natural gas. I think most people in that, specifically, you want to talk about this council for this, the Energy Council that now has, Doug Burgum, Chris Wright, these guys, they are natural gas all the way. And what you're going to see, I think, is the ability to permit a lot more of these pipelines. We saw that with BlackRock or Blackstone and EQT. EQT attempting to monetize their midstream assets at what they feel like is the highest valuation it'll have in 3 to 5 years, because now people can build pipelines because the permitting will be fine. And so, we talked about that on Friday, but then also these LNG export terminals are going to get approved a lot quicker. And so you're going to see more of them sprout up, and you're going to see natural gas prices, or at least the spread being sold from the United States to Europe, continue to increase, because that's why natural gas prices are so depressed, because we can't ship it anywhere. We could all ship it overseas. We'd all be making Jerry Jones and Comstock be making a fortune, but they can't.
But that goes back to my point also. Here, let's go to the next building block of growth for energy exportation. And that would be, why don't we tie this to and like Vietnam has put in an LNG power plant, meaning it goes straight from the LNG tanks to their power plant. And that would be a great thing for us to export, building the power plants, kind of like the bricks and mortar road, the road from China is, let's go build these markets, export our power plants, export our LNG. This would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, what's next?
Let's go to Texas oil town Odessa, now among the USA cities with highest wages. I love me Texas, Midland, Odessa. Weren't you out there just a little while ago?
I was paying my dues.
Paying your dues. You got to love this. In Texas oil town Odessa and Denver join the top 10 metros with the highest weekly wages over the past year. Odessa's biggest sister in the Permian Basin remained first. Isn't that cool?
Well, I mean, obviously oil and gas, there's a demand for it. There's a need for it. My previous city, Denver, squeaks in there. Not bad, not bad. But again, it goes to show you 2 out of the 10 cities are oil and gas. 2 out of the 10 cities are tech. Tech and oil and gas are right there in terms of the amount of earning that you could potentially make as a young person. And for me, you'd rather go into oil and gas than tech, trust me.
Oh, absolutely. Denver kind of got hit by having the Venezuelans hanging out there, taking some of them profits as they were putting them over the border.
It's true. It is funny when I tell people, oh, where'd you grow up? Well, Denver. Oh, what part of Denver? Oh, well, you heard about it in the news. You actually heard about it in the news. It's the second most famous city in Colorado now.
I was actually the guy on the other side of the door going, run away.
Yeah, I was actually the one collecting rent.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Muy bien. All right. Off to you, man.
All right, guys. Well, we'll jump over here and talk oil and gas finance for a second, guys. But first, we got to pay the bills. As always, the news and analysis that you just heard is brought to you by the world's greatest website, energynewsbeat.com, the best place for all your energy and oil and gas news. Stu and the team do a tremendous job making sure that website stays up to speed with everything you know to be the tip of the spear when it comes to the energy and oil and gas business. Go ahead and hit that description below for all the links to the timestamp, links to the articles. You can also check out you can also check us out on Substack, theenergynewsbeat.substack.com for all for some custom articles. Stu's doing a great job of pumping out some nice content there. And also, guys, again, we're getting into December now. If you have a tax problem, we have a solution for you. It's called oil and gas investing. Hit the link below, investinoil.energynewsbeat.com for more information on how to lower your tax burden, become Billy Bob Thornton from Landman, diversify your portfolio. And again, if I hadn't mentioned this, you can lower your tax burden, guys. Taxes are so 2023. Come into the future, into AKA the present, 2024, where taxes are not a thing. Again, investinoil.energynewsbeat.com. I mean, kind of a choppy last few days, Stu. Oil kind of dropped from where it was, about $71 on Tuesday. It ended up closing at basically $68 straight up, mainly from the standpoint of crude oil stockpiles falling a lot more than was expected. We did see from a WTI or from a WTI standpoint, we closed at $68. Let's go ahead quickly though and dive into top line numbers. So we closed at basically all time highs for the S&P 500, 6,032. Nasdaq was up to 20,930. 2 and 10-year yields were actually down 1.4 and 1.6 percentage points, respectively. Crude oil, as I mentioned, from WTI 68 even on the close. Brent oil 72.48 even on the close. Natural gas was up about 4.5 percentage points, really almost 5 percentage points, $3.36. And our XOP contract was 145.48, which was up about 0.3 of a percentage point. Really, I think where you're seeing prices might elevate a dollar or two in the future has more to do mainly with the fact that OPEC decided to push off the meeting. The tea leaves coming out as they actually don't want to bring all this production back online. That'll be something that we'll definitely be watching over the next couple months to see what happens there. We also are seeing the fact that the Israel-Hezbollah conflict could potentially be coming to an end. Obviously, we're waiting, as I mentioned, OPEC, that meeting they pushed off was supposed to be today, is actually now December 5th. The thought, as I mentioned again, is they could push off their supply hikes. The IEA has come out. We were seeing a lot of different people drop their supply demand expectations. The IEA, as I mentioned, and this is straight from our Reuters article, sees the prospect of more than 1 million barrels per day excess supply, equal to more than 1% of global output. A quote, the updated snapshot insulates the next year's promises to be looser than the current one, and oil prices are to average below the 2024 level. That's according to oil broker PVM. Very interesting there. I think from a global inventory standpoint, Stu, as you mentioned, we're actually at the lowest we've ever been. So there's kind of two counterweights, I think, seeing here. Obviously, from the supply standpoint, we're oversupplied, or will be oversupplied if you believe the IEA, keyword, if you believe them. And on the other hand, if you believe that we're undersupplied, again, if you believe we're undersupplied, the fact is we've kind of got these two tensions pulling at each other. I think it'll be very interesting. Basically, Reuters poll, they talked to 41 analysts who suggested that Brent could average about 74.53, which was, what I think is interesting, was the 7th time this year that the 2025 average Brent price has been downgraded. So there is a trend downward in terms of where prices are going. I think there's something there. Where do you see it, Stu? Where do you see 2025 oil prices?
I think peacetime is coming. I think global peace is going to be here, and I think people are going to want to travel. I see demand up, and I see investment has been down. That is a simple fact of life. We need trillions of dollars just to meet demand curves. And while Ananias, who I respect very highly on X, I recommend following him. He thinks it's going to be in the 70 range. I think it's going to be the 85 range, but that's just me.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting where we think prices go, but I do think it's going to be a little bit lower. I tend to agree with that oil broker report, where I do think it's most likely going to be a little bit lower. But with that, guys, we appreciate everybody checking us out here on this gorgeous Monday. We hope you had a happy Thanksgiving, spend times with family, but we're going to be back in the chair all this week, ready to bring you the news. So, guys, for Stuart Turley, I'm Michael Tanner. We'll let you get out of here. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.